Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Gotan-e Service as we celebrate the birth of Shinran Shonin, the founder of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. It is a time for gratitude and reflection on Shinran Shonin's teachings and his life, which emphasize reliance on Amida Buddha's compassion. We are most honored to have with us today Reverend Michael Endo. Reverend Endo serves at the office of the Bishop at the Buddhist Churches of America, and he is also at the Buddhist Church of Oakland. We're all happy to see you again, Sensei. Thank you for coming. We will continue with the service with quiet meditation. Sensei will ring the bell to begin and to also end the meditation. Please place your hands together in Kasho. Please stand for our opening gatha, Life of Shinran, on page 128 of the Brown Book, and remain standing for the reading of the threefold refuge. Continue now with the threefold refuge on page 10 in the purple book. Page 10 in the purple book. Difficult is it to receive a human form, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, restore us to Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units of true accord in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Sensei will now lead us in sutra chanting. This afternoon's sutra will be Shoshin-ge on page 33.
주까지 きしこそ現代諸法聖書に如如来法税よき釈迦如来よかせ一種応妙難天人有十来一種とせ質の際は無無限先絶大乗無常法召喚義理召安般天人安行六六信行異行指導ら無念弥陀仏本願自念即時唯一の唯の上昇如来法大悲偶然よ天人菩薩造論世金妙無下公如来永衆たら見心人後世の頂戴世界こういう本願にえこ異道仏教勝利し金入六大法界立逆如来へ収集特使連携創世界即昇信行精進有本の人間人図入所自音自用下本師論難量天使上皇南諸菩薩来三蔵ルシ十条行本行宣行義悪法天人菩薩論中下王道輪が現世が高原猫ゆたり少女死に唯心人漠然本無心人法生じ即涅槃一心無量光明道小宇宙上大不下同者結晶論難所唯妙浄土かす入万全自力変動中円満独語感染症三無三神経音語増末放熱動意一生増悪自無税死安如外称名化全道 교기 지내서 요이다이 도약사님 소쇼시전한 겐신교가이 지가이교 행기안요강이산 센도슈신한센지 오게니로 쇼벤유 모주아크니 유쇼드 다야크사이 세슈주 본노 쇼겐스이프겐 다이무겐 조쇼가 오시겐급여불교 뱀민zem마그범문이 시슈교쇼코엔슈 센자루온강그안세 겐가이쇼지링맹게 겐지기조이쇼시 석류자그조의라 이치신기기현유 그교다이기슈시도 조사이무헨 모두종교그안 도서그지슈 글로신 유익하신 시리
Today's Dharma message will be presented by Reverend Endo.
High tech today.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ty. Thanks for everyone saying so. So we can begin my message this morning with a reading. If you join me in Gasho. How joyous I am, Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Rare is it to come upon the sacred scriptures from the westward lands of India and the commentaries of the masters of China and Japan, but now I have been able to encounter them. Rare is it to hear them, but already I have been able to hear. Reverently entrusting myself to the teaching, practice, and realization that are the true essence of the Pure Land Way. I am especially aware of the profundity of the Tathagata's benevolence. Here I rejoice in what I have heard and extol what I have attained. From Shinran Shonin's Kyoto Shinshu. Namo, 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 Namo. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to be a part of your very special Gotan-e Service. As Lauren mentioned, this service is a very important service for all of us. It is we celebrate the birth of our founder, Shinran Shonin. Some of you may have gone to Japan a couple of years ago to observe the 850th birthday of Shinran Shonin, and also at the same time the 800th anniversary of the founding of the Jodo Shinshu tradition. But I know at least 400 of us from BCA went to celebrate Shinran Shonin's birthday at that time. So it was really a wonderful time. And so this afternoon, for this Gotan-e Service, I wanted to present my talk through a PowerPoint. And as you can see, it is showing on the screen. Okay. I've entitled this talk today, A Word of Greeting Will Open the Gate Surrounding Your Heart. Okay. You'll understand where this quote came from in a few minutes, but this is what I wanted to entitle today's reading. So this past October last year, I led a small group. This past October, I led a small group of people, some friends, to Japan. They had asked me about 2 years before if I could take them on a tour. So I thought, okay, well, finally had some time. So last October, I created this tour and took them. And I thought it would be nice for this particular tour to kind of get away from the ordinary places that people generally go to when you go to visit Japan. And that would be like Tokyo or Kyoto, Osaka, Hiroshima, right? What my friend Brian Nagata calls the beginner's tour. Right? And so everybody on this tour has already been to Japan. And so I thought, well, it'll be nice to go to a different, kind of maybe hit some different spots that aren't as common on tours. So for this trip, I thought it would be nice to create an itinerary where of course we did land in Tokyo, but from there we went right away to Hokkaido, Sapporo. Hokkaido has become a very popular destination for people visiting Japan nowadays. So I included Hokkaido, Sapporo, and then we came back into the main island, Honshu, through Aomori, which is the first prefecture you come to in Honshu from Hokkaido. Okay, we stopped in Aomori and we stayed in Hirosaki area. And then we did make our way to Kyoto because some of them wanted to go to see the bamboo forest. So we went to Arashiyama in Kyoto. And then on the way back, so the main purpose of this tour that I told the group, I said, well, if we're going to go, number one, let's go kind of off the beaten path. And number two, if we're going to go, let's try to go see Mount Fuji up close, right? So I said, on the way back from Kyoto to Tokyo to end our trip, we'll stop in Yamanashi. And there's 5 famous lakes that surround Mount Fuji, Fujiboko they call it. But one of them is Lake Kawaguchiko. And so we went there and we stayed at a hot spring onsen at Lake Kawaguchi. And then we made our way back to Tokyo. Right? So, we had a wonderful time. Weather was beautiful throughout the trip. From the time we landed in Tokyo, we went to Sapporo, Aomori, Yamanashi, in Kyoto. The weather was high 60s, low 70s. And the evenings were staying in the 50s. So kind of like current Bay Area. Well, today's a little bit warmer, but kind of like Bay Area weather right now. Kyoto was actually pretty warm. It was up in the 80s during the day. Even in the evenings, it didn't go below, I think, mid 70s. So this is already toward the end of October, right? And so a little bit unexpected, but still pleasant, to be able to experience that. So on this trip, something happened during our visit to Yamanashi Prefecture, which is where we wanted to see Mount Fuji. Well, which is where I wanted them to see Mount Fuji. And so this brings me to the title of my talk today. So as I mentioned, the title of the talk, A Word of Greetings Will Open the Gate Surrounding Your Heart. This is a quote from the book by our current Monshu's father, Zen Monshu Hoshin Oten. And this is the title of one of the chapters of Zenmon-sama's book, the book is entitled The Buddha's Wish for the World. Have anybody seen the book? It's a very popular book by Zenmon-sama. It's in English, of course. But in this book, Zenmon-sama presents to us the Buddha Dharma. It was his intention to share the Buddha Dharma with us and to explain how it applies to our everyday life. So it's very meaningful, all of his chapters in this book. And it was a chance encounter on this trip to Lake Kawaguchi in Yamanashi that reminded me of one of the chapters in this book. So anyway, Zenmon-sama explains how the opportunity will sometimes present itself to exchange greetings with someone whom we've never met before. Are we looking at the same screen? Okay. That looks different from what I have. So, okay. But anyway, so in this chapter of the book, it begins, this happened to me the other day when I went to Tokyo's Kiyosumi Park. The park was featured in a magazine article I had read, and it occurred to me that I would like to see it one day. So Zenmon-sama, he continues in the book, as I was taking a walk on the pathway around the lake, I happened to strike up a most natural conversation with somebody who was a complete stranger to me. It is quite beautiful, isn't it? Gomonchi-sama replied, indeed, it is. I felt quite elated to have this brief exchange without any protocol with someone I had never met before. Of course, some people might say I am making a big to-do over nothing, Zenmon-san continues, but this rather unpretentious conversation left me with a brisk, warm feeling. And Zenmon-sama goes on to describe how both he and the stranger were entranced by the beautiful scenery surrounding them, and this naturally opened up their hearts and made this exchange of greetings possible. So Zenmon-sama goes on to describe yet another occasion when he was riding the Shinkansen, the bullet train. The Shinkansen came to an unscheduled stop. It seems they were experiencing some difficulty with the signal lights further down the track. When we learned this was the case, the person sitting next to me started up a conversation. Oh goodness, what are we going to do? Yes, I wonder when it will be up and running again, Zenmon-sama replied. Up to that point, Zenmon-sama continues, we had not exchanged a single word, and it was likely we would not have had that conversation at all if the train service had not been interrupted. Now, though we looked each other in the eyes, turned our heads quizzically and furrowed our brows, this was the kind of conversation we had. I think this was kind of a mutual greeting, or aisatsu, Japanese word for greeting, aisatsu. And since we were kindred spirits, as far as both trying to reach our destination as quickly as possible, when the train came to its unscheduled stop, we were suddenly in the same mindset. That was our entire exchange, but it helped to ease the tension for a moment. So at that point, at one point I would like to make here is that there was no hidden agenda in these words. Words like, it is beautiful, isn't it? And what are we going to do? And so on, once said, often amount to nothing more than pleasantries we exchange on occasion. In this situation, however, even though the person to whom you are speaking is a complete stranger, when you mutually share the same situation, you both stand on the same plane of thought. This is the beauty of aisatsu, greeting. So far better than being stuck on a stalled train all by yourself is to have someone who shares the same thoughts with you. After you have looked at each other in the eyes and exchanged a few words, somehow it makes us feel better. So in this book, Zenmon-sama goes on and he concludes this section of his book with this story. Years ago, there used to be a small cafe near our temple. The man who ran the place once told me the one thing that really pleased him when the customers said, "Gochi-sou-sama," right, which was to compliment him on his cooking as they went out. All he had to hear was that one word. Somehow, it made him feel that all of the trouble he went through was worth it. You might say a word of greeting has the role of gently pushing open the gate surrounding your heart So this is how Zenmon-sama finishes his this particular chapter in his book. So during that trip to Japan, last year, I mentioned that we had gone to Yamanashi Prefecture to see Mount Fuji, and the main purpose was to see number one Mount Fuji, and of course to visit a place in Japan I thought would kind of be off the beaten path, right? Something kind of unique for our tour group, and to stay near Lake Kawaguchi, one of those 5 famous lakes around Mount Fuji, so we could hopefully see Mount Fuji up close. So how many of you in this congregation have been to Japan? Yeah, okay. So if you're riding the Shinkansen bullet train in Japan, and suddenly somebody happens to notice Mount Fuji in the distance, right? Maybe you've heard this when you're riding the train. So everybody, they hear this, they all go to that side of the train, hoping they could look out the window. They're getting their phone and their camera ready, and Shinkansen is going so fast that by the time you're ready, you get your phone open and get your camera up there. Mount Fuji's gone by in like a couple seconds, right? I've done that a number of times myself, and of course missed it. So this time, I thought it'd be nice to be right there near Mount Fuji, not on a train, but on the ground, without it disappearing in seconds. And so I included the stop at Lake Kawaguchi. However, I've learned that you have to understand that if you want to see Mount Fuji, it's always a gamble. It's always a gamble, right? And it's the weather that you have to count on cooperating with you, right? So we arrived at Lake Kawaguchi in Yamanashi in the early afternoon, and it was overcast, it was gloomy. The forecast said that it was likely going to be rain. We were only going to be in Lake Kawaguchi for a day, basically 2 days. We got there that afternoon, we were there the full day the next day, and the full day after that, I think it was. But anyway, so we arrived to overcast, gloomy skies with a forecast of rain. On the second day at Lake Kawaguchi, I thought to myself, of all the luck, the weather was beautiful up to that point, up in Sapporo, Aomori, down in Kyoto. Kyoto had a little bit of rain, and then we get to Yamanashi, and then it's weather like this. I'm thinking, of all the luck, and so we were only going to be at the lake for another day, and of course the forecast continued to be cloudy and rain, chances of rain. So this picture is basically what Lake Kawaguchi looked like over there the whole time. Cloudy, gloomy, overcast. Right?
October.
Yeah, this is like middle October. So then it was on the evening before we were going to leave to Tokyo that I was sitting in the onsen at the hotel we were staying at, sad that we probably weren't going to be able to see Mount Fuji after all of this planning and anticipation. Right? And it was then that I had this out of the blue encounter. And this gentleman comes into the onsen. At first we were just minding our own business. After all, we're both not wearing anything. We don't know each other, right? So we're minding our own business. So I went out the door up to this rooftop portion of the onsen bath. There's a bath on the top of the roof of the hotel. So I went up there, and a few minutes later, he came up to the rooftop to the onsen. And so from there, I asked him, struck up a conversation on where he was from, and it was just the two of us. We said hello to each other, and he asked where I was from, and I told him I was from California. He was a bit surprised. I think he thought I was native Japanese when he first saw me in the bath. But anyway, so then he said, I asked him, what's your name? He said his name was Paul, and that he was originally from Thailand, but was now living in New Zealand for a number of years, where he was running 2 or 3 Thai restaurants in Auckland. And I asked him if this was his first time to Japan, and he said no, that he had been to Japan a couple of times. So I told him that this was my first time to Yamanashi. I told him I had been to Japan a number of times, but my first time to Yamanashi and to Lake Kawaguchi, and that I had hoped to see Mount Fuji on this trip. He said it was he and his wife's first time to Lake Kawaguchi as well, and for the same reason, to see Mount Fuji. But like me, he was disappointed since the weather was so bad and it was likely we weren't going to be able to see the mountain before leaving. He was going to leave too the next day. And so I said, I guess, we'll have to come back again another time, and hopefully we'll get to see Mount Fuji on the next trip. So the next morning, my eyes opened around it was about 4:45. It was dark outside, and so I picked up my cell phone just to take a chance and see, what's the weather today in Lake Kawaguchi. And I couldn't believe it. It said the weather showed clear skies outside. Stars, how the stars show up on your weather thing. So I jumped out of bed, I washed up real quickly, and then I rushed up to the observation deck on top of the hotel, where there is a spot. They put that bath, outdoor bath up there because of the fact that from that lookout point you can see Mount Fuji right there in the distance, right? And so I ran up there, and of course, it was clear outside, and there it was, Mount Fuji, in all its glory.
It's the sunrise.
Sunrise?
Sunrise.
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it was, yeah. And so Mount Fuji was right. This is the lookout point from the top of that hotel.
No snow.
No. So that was another thing. We didn't know what it looked like. It was cloudy when we got there, but because the weather had been so warm all that time, not a dusting of snow on Mount Fuji. So if you've ever seen Mount Fuji without snow, this is what it looks like. So I get up there at 4:45. It was about 5 a.m. when I got up there, and so I texted the other 7 people in my tour group. I said, hey, you guys need to wake up and get up here if you want to see Mount Fuji, the whole purpose of this trip, right? And so they all woke up, and they came up to the top to see it. And so when I saw Mount Fuji for the first time like this, it was like so awe-inspiring. Right? It was like, wow, really. By that time, many of the other guests in the hotel had the same idea. I guess they all checked their phones. They saw us clear outside. So, and because of that, not long after that, a number of them made their way up to the top of the hotel to see Mount Fuji. And among the first to come up was, who else? It was Paul and his wife, right? So we looked at each other smiling, and we were both so happy that we were able to see Mount Fuji before we left the Yamanashi on this trip. Except for those in my tour group, we were all basically strangers to one another there on the rooftop, all looking at Mount Fuji. And we couldn't help but exchange pleasantries with one another. All these other people that were staying in the hotel, all of a sudden, we're all gathered at the top, right, of the hotel. And we're all saying the same thing. Wow, how magnificent Mount Fuji is, and how isn't it beautiful? How beautiful it is. And so as we greeted each other, we asked each other where we were from. California, Australia, China, New Zealand, Norway, and on and on. Various people from all over the world. And so this reminded me of that chapter from Zenmon-sama's book, right? A word of greetings will open the gate surrounding your heart. Right? Just like Zenmon-sama's experience and his walk in the park in Tokyo, and my chance encounter with Paul in the onsen, and the next day meeting him once again with all of the other people from throughout the world on the rooftop of that onsen to see Mount Fuji. We were all entranced by the beauty of the scenery of that and the moment, and this naturally opened up our hearts, and made these exchanges possible, made these conversations possible. And so this is how I think Shinran Shonin must have felt after he encountered the Nembutsu teaching. After 20 years of rigorous training on Mount Hiei, as we know, and realizing that this was not the path for him, he made his way down the mountain and he met with somebody. He met with his teacher, Honen Shonin, and of course, many, many other teachers along this path. And this experience of meeting with Honen Shonin and many of the other masters that he studied to reach the level of education that he did, I think we can see this from his words in the opening preface of what is the most important work I think that he wrote, is Jodo Shinshu. Right? And it was that reading that I opened it with: "How joyous I am, Gotoku Shinran, disciple of Shakyamuni. Rare is it to come upon the sacred scriptures of the westward land of India and the commentaries of the masters of China and Japan. But now I have been able to encounter them. Rare is it to hear them, but already I have been able to hear. Reverently entrusting myself to the teaching, practice, and realization that are the true essence of the Pure Land Way, I am especially aware of the profundity of the Tathagata's benevolence. Here I rejoice in what I have heard and extol what I have attained." For Shinran Shonin, having met with his teachers and masters of India and China and Japan, was probably one of the most joyous moments in his life. Of the 7 masters that Shinran Shonin studied, held most respect for, studied with, it was Honen Shonin that he had direct contact with as he conducted his studies. And this meeting had such a profound effect on his life that Shinran Shonin would lead from that moment on a wonderful life of sharing the Nembutsu teaching with all of us. And he was able to co-interact and exchange words with his teacher, Honen Shonin. And because of that, we have been left with this wonderful, wonderful teaching of the Nembutsu teaching. Because of Shinran Shonin's joy and because the gate surrounding his heart opened up, we have been able to hear and to receive his teachings today after 850 years. And because of our encounter with the teachings, we react and respond and we acknowledge with the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Because Namo Amida Butsu as our deep gratitude to Shinran Shonin for sharing with us what he learned and what he rejoiced in. We read the 3 treasures earlier, a few minutes ago, but it always opens up with: hard is it to be born into human life, now we receive it. And difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One, now we hear it. As we hear the words of Shinran Shonin, as we receive the teachings of the Buddha, may the gate surrounding our hearts also open up as we hear and receive these teachings, so that we too can pass on this wonderful teaching with others. So, on this occasion of Gotan-e Shinran Shonin's birthday, we reflect on his life, the chance encounters that he had with his teachers, and because of these encounters, his heart was able to open up. And like us, we have these chance encounters with people that we may have never met before, but it's just a simple greeting of "hello, how are you, nice to see you." These are the words that open up our hearts and begin this interaction, just like Shinran Shonin had with his teachers. And so we should always remember to open up our hearts and interact with one another. I think in this way we're able to create a happier and more happier life for all of us. I think in today's world there's so much animosity between people, between countries. Right? I think it's time we look to the teachings of the Buddha and we're able to open up our hearts in a way that we respect and appreciate one another as fellow human beings in this world. And so again, I'd like to thank you all for coming together on this occasion of Gotan-e and celebrating Shinran Shonin's birthday. And I'd like to close the talk with the reading of the Gobunsho. Join me in Gassho. Namo Buddhist. Namo Buddhist.上人一流のご関係の赴きは信心のもって本当せられそのゆえはもろもろの造業を投げ捨てて一心に未断に起業すれば不可思議の眼力として仏の方より往生は事情せしめたもそのくらいも一年発起入賞上始終とも釈しその上の称名念仏た如来我が往生を定めたまいしご恩法人の念仏と心歴なり花かしこShinran Shonin taught that the essence of Jodo Shinshu is Shinji. The reason is that by abandoning all practices and completely entrusting ourselves in Amida Buddha, our spiritual rebirth is assured by Amida through the inconceivable power of the primal vow. This is known as entering the ranks of the truly assured at the very moment of Shinji. Therefore, all utterances of the Nembutsu should be understood only as an expression of gratitude for Amida's assurance of our spiritual rebirth. With reverence, I remain. Namo Buddhist. 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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sensei, for your thoughtful message and the wonderful presentation. It was really worth listening to that and seeing that. Thank you so much. Please stand for our closing gatha. It will be found in the purple book, Chuso Gotan-e, on page 268. Please be seated. Do we have any announcements?
For those people that were able to help with the cemetery cleanup, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hopefully the cemeteries will look pretty good when we visit them next weekend. And for those of you that are interested in being able to help out the people in Southern California who were victims of the Southern California fires earlier this year, we are still collecting donations, and at the end of this month is when we will send them to the BCA Endowment Foundation. And for those of you that have had a chance to look at the Sangha for the schedule for next week, please take a look and see when we'll be visiting the various cemeteries. Thank you very much.
I would just like to acknowledge that, I don't know if there were a lot or how many, but those that did the Panda Express yesterday Friday, for the FBWA, on behalf of Enmanji, I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken and Claire. Any other announcements? If not, I would like to thank Reverend Endo again for being here with your message and your presence. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you to George Sal for setting up the Onai and ringing the conch show. Thank you, Dr. Kent Masuda, for playing the organ. Thank you to the May Toban for the followers and offerings. Thank you to Tai Luong for your tech abilities and setting up everything for the service for Sensei. Thank you so much. Light refreshments are being served in the hall, and if you had a chance to Oshoku, please do before leaving the home. Thank you again for coming.